The message arrived at 2:37 a.m. It wasn't the kind of text you expect from your wife after a late night out. It wasn't even a message you'd expect from someone you barely knew. "I'm not coming home. Don't bother looking for me." That was it. I stared at the screen, holding my breath. The first thought that crossed my mind was that it was some kind of joke. Maybe she was drunk, playing a prank, or trying to be dramatic. But deep down, I knew this wasn't like any joke I'd ever known. This wasn't Sarah. It didn't sound like her at all. It didn't feel like her. I immediately checked the timestamp, 2:37 a.m. I looked over at the clock, 2:38 a.m. She was still out there, somewhere. And the house was empty. I got up from the couch, my heart starting to pound. It wasn't like I had to worry about her. She was always on time, always in touch. We had our routine: get home after work, a quick dinner, watch a show, talk about the day, and eventually bed. Simple. But this sudden, cold, unexplained message felt like a hammer shattering something I hadn't even realized was fragile. I went to the kitchen to grab a glass of water, trying to process what had just happened. My hand gripped the counter, my thoughts spinning wildly. There were no fights, no tension, no signs of anything unusual, just normalcy like always. But then I remembered. She had been distant the last couple of weeks. Little things, nothing huge, but enough to make me question whether something was slipping through the cracks. She'd been more secretive with her phone, taking longer to respond to messages. I thought it was work. I thought it was stress. I thought it was nothing. But now, with the weight of that message hanging in the air, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I grabbed my phone and stared at her contact information. My finger hovered over the call button, but something stopped me. What if she didn't answer? What if she didn't want to talk to me? The thought sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't a question of whether she was going to explain herself. It was a question of what she was explaining. I set the phone down, breathing heavily. The message kept playing in my head like a broken record. "Don't bother looking for me." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Sarah wasn't like this. She wasn't the type to disappear without a word, to walk away in the middle of the night. I ran my hand through my hair, trying to think. I couldn't just sit here. I couldn't just wait. I wasn't going to be some passive observer in my own life. There had to be more. There had to be more. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door. The cool night air hit me like a slap, but it did little to calm the storm brewing in my chest. I drove through the streets, my headlights cutting through the darkness, trying to make sense of everything. My thoughts kept returning to the message, to the last few weeks that now seemed filled with tiny, telling signs I'd missed. Was she seeing someone else? Had I been so oblivious? The more I drove, the less I cared about what I might find. I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I was looking for the truth. I turned the corner and pulled into a parking lot. A familiar sight, Sarah's favorite late-night cafe. I hadn't even realized I was driving here until I stopped the car. I sat there for a few minutes, staring at the dimly lit sign. The kind of place we used to go to after a long day, the kind of place where everything felt familiar and safe. But now, as I looked at it, it seemed foreign. It seemed like a place where something I couldn't understand was happening, something I wasn't a part of anymore. I stepped out of the car and walked towards the entrance, my heart pounding louder with each step. I didn't know if I was about to find something that would shatter me completely, or if I was just chasing shadows, but I needed to know. I needed to see. The door opened with a soft jingle as I stepped inside, the warmth of the cafe hitting me almost immediately. But there was no sign of Sarah. The place was nearly empty, save for a few people huddled around tables, lost in their own worlds. No Sarah. I scanned the room, my stomach sinking lower by the second. I walked to the counter, where the barista greeted me with a nod. "Can I help you?" I hesitated for a second before speaking. Has she been in tonight?" The barista's expression shifted slightly, his eyes darting down as if trying to find the right words. "Oh, yeah? She left a little while ago." My heart skipped a beat. She left. That was it. No goodbye? No explanation. No reason. Just gone. "Do you know where she went?" I asked, my voice sounding more desperate than I meant. The barista gave me a small shrug. "Sorry, I'm not sure. She didn't say." I stood there for a moment, taking in the quiet hum of the cafe. I should have been angry. I should have been furious. But all I could feel was this overwhelming sense of emptiness. It was like I was walking through a dream, a world where nothing made sense anymore, and I was just a spectator. But I couldn't give up. Not yet. I left the cafe and got back in my car, my mind racing with the possibilities. Had I lost her for good? Had everything we built together been some kind of illusion? Or was she still out there, waiting for me to find her? I didn't expect to find her there. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but it wasn't nothing. The empty cafe, the absence of her familiar presence. That was the first time I truly felt the full weight of what was happening. I could still hear her voice in my head. Those late-night conversations, the soft laughter after a joke, the way she'd ask about my day, even when we both knew she wasn't really listening. That was who she was. But this felt like a stranger, a complete disconnect. I sat in my car for a while after leaving the cafe, the engine running, the headlights cutting through the thick night. My mind kept playing those haunting, broken fragments of our life together. Her texts that felt a little too distant, her smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. Had I ignored the signs? Or had they only appeared after she disappeared, as if to taunt me with everything I should have seen but didn't? What had I done to get here? Was I that bad? Was it something I said or didn't say? Or worse, was there someone else? My mind spiraled with questions, each one more suffocating than the last. I couldn't sit there forever, though. I needed to move. I needed answers, but I also needed to find her. I didn't care if it was late, if I was crossing boundaries. I had to see it through. I grabbed my phone again, checked her contact details, stared at her name. I thought about calling, but then I stopped. The message had already been sent, hadn't it? Don't bother looking for me. It was like a closed door, like something I couldn't push past, and I wasn't sure if I should even try. But I had no choice. I called her again. This time, it went to voicemail almost immediately. Sarah, it's me. Please, just let me know you're okay. I don't know what's going on, but we need to talk about this. I'm not just going to let you walk away like this. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. I didn't care how desperate I sounded. I needed to understand. I needed to know if I was a fool, if I was just another guy who had been blindsided by someone who never really cared. I hung up and put my phone on the passenger seat, gripping the steering wheel. I needed to move, to think. I started the car and drove, my thoughts a chaotic mess. What was she doing right now? Was she alone? Was she happy? Was she with him? It was all I could think about, and it made my stomach twist. The city streets blurred past me as I tried to clear my head, but the harder I tried, the more confused I became. There were no clear answers. No neat little explanation. I knew she had to be somewhere, but it felt like she was slipping further and further away with every passing minute. After what felt like hours, I found myself at the edge of the city, a place I rarely visited anymore, a neighborhood full of dark alleys and old buildings that had seen better days. But I didn't know where else to go. Something inside me told me that maybe, just maybe, she was hiding out here. I parked near an old diner. I didn't know why I thought she'd be here, but something about it felt right. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the neon-lit sign, the flickering lights casting long shadows on the sidewalk. The place looked deserted, the kind of place you'd pass by without a second thought. But I wasn't here by accident. The door creaked open as I stepped inside. The air smelled of stale coffee and grease, the kind of place where people went to forget, where lives were suspended in time. Behind the counter stood an older man, his eyes half-lidded, clearly more interested in the newspaper in front of him than anything else. I felt a pang of unease. What if I was wrong? What if she wasn't here? But I couldn't just walk away. Not without knowing. I approached the counter, trying to steady my voice. Hey, has a woman, Sarah, tall, brown hair. She might have been here recently? I didn't expect much, didn't expect him to even remember. But I needed to ask. I had to keep trying. The man looked up, his expression unreadable. Yeah, I think she came by a little while ago. Wasn't here long, though? I froze. What do you mean, wasn't here long? He shrugged, tapping the paper with a pencil. She just sat for a bit, had some coffee, and left. Said she was meeting someone. Didn't leave a name. A chill ran down my spine. Meeting someone. The words echoed in my mind, each one like a punch to the gut. Meeting someone? Who? I tried to push down the panic creeping up on me, but I couldn't stop myself from asking. Do you know where she went? The man gave a slow shake of his head. Sorry, no idea. She seemed in a hurry. I turned and walked out without another word, my thoughts a tangled mess. My mind raced faster than my feet could carry me. Who was she meeting? And why had she been so distant lately? Was I just too blind to see the signs? I needed to find her. The drive back to the apartment felt like an eternity. My phone buzzed again. It was Sarah. I almost couldn't bring myself to open it. What could she possibly say now? But I couldn't resist. I opened the message. I'm sorry for everything. I'll explain when you're ready to listen, but I need some space. The words hit me like a slap. I was left standing there, holding my phone, staring at those words. What did she mean? What had happened to us? Had I really been that oblivious? Or was this just the way she had been planning to leave all along? Everything I thought I knew about our life, about our marriage, felt like it was crumbling away, piece by piece. The text hung in the air like a dark cloud, its weight pulling at the edges of my mind. I'm sorry for everything. I'll explain when you're ready to listen, but I need some space. Was that it? Was that all I was going to get after everything? After years of being together, I was left with this? I stood there, in the middle of the street, staring at the words on my screen. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the sidewalk, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. There was a voice inside me telling me that I needed to keep going, that I couldn't let this be the end without hearing her out, without understanding what had really happened. I jumped into my car, my mind a swirl of confusion and dread. Space. Space. Was she serious? Did she honestly think that a few simple words would be enough to explain everything? I slammed my hand on the steering wheel, frustration bubbling up inside me. I wasn't asking for a text. I wasn't asking for vague apologies. I was asking for the truth. I wanted to know what had been going on. What had gone wrong? I drove through the empty streets, the city's lights blurring by. The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how much I didn't know. How many times had she disappeared like this, hidden behind a smile, behind the walls she built so carefully? We had shared so much, or so I thought. But now, looking back, I realized how many things I had missed. The late nights she had started staying out. The distant looks. The way her phone buzzed with texts she never let me see. How had I been so blind? I pulled up to the apartment building, the one we had lived in for the last few years, the one that had started to feel like a stranger's home. I parked and sat in the car for a moment, letting the silence settle around me. I wasn't sure if I was afraid to go inside, or if I was just exhausted from everything. I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling anymore. Anger, confusion, betrayal. They all blended together into this overwhelming haze that I couldn't quite escape. After what felt like an eternity, I finally made myself get out of the car. The elevator ride up felt like it took forever, the metallic hum of the cable doing little to calm my nerves. I stood in front of our door, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what I was about to find. Had she left? Was everything gone? Or was she really just hiding? I opened the door slowly, half expecting to find the place empty, lifeless. But as soon as I stepped inside, I was hit with the familiar scent of her perfume. It was strange, almost haunting, like an echo of something that used to be. The apartment was silent, but there was no sign of her. No bags packed, no personal items missing. It was like she had just stepped out, but left behind traces of herself. I walked through the living room, the space feeling too big for just one person. There was a coffee cup left on the table, a half-eaten bowl of cereal in the sink. She had been here, recently. The evidence was right in front of me. But where was she now? Why had she left? I went to our bedroom, my eyes scanning the room for any clues. The bed was untouched, but there was a note on the nightstand. I picked it up, my hands trembling slightly as I read the few words she had left. I'm sorry. I can't keep doing this. That was it. No explanation. No reason. Just a sentence that felt like a goodbye. I crumpled the note in my hand, my heart sinking. Was that really all she had to say after everything we had built together? After all those years, the good times, the bad? Was that how easy it was for her? I couldn't just sit there, feeling helpless. I had to find her. I had to know what was going on. But where could she have gone? She didn't have any friends nearby, not any that I knew of. She didn't have family here. She didn't even talk about people outside of our circle anymore. But the more I thought about it, the more something nagged at me. There had to be someone. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through her contacts. Her mother, her childhood friends, a couple of colleagues. But I knew none of them would have answers. Still, I called her mother. It rang a few times before she picked up. Hello. Her voice sounded tired, like she had just woken up. Hi, it's Eric. Have you heard from Sarah? I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the anxiety creeping in. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. No, why? What's going on? I don't know. She's gone. I got a message from her earlier, saying she wasn't coming home. I can't find her anywhere. Another silence. Then, her voice cracked slightly. Eric, she's been acting strange for a while now. I thought she was just stressed out from work. But I didn't know it had gotten this bad. I froze. What do you mean, strange? What was she telling you? She was distant. Wouldn't talk much about what was going on in her life. She kept saying everything was fine, but I could tell something was off. I thought it was a phase. I could feel the anger rising again, bubbling up from a place I didn't know existed. This whole time, I had thought it was just me, just the small cracks that appeared in our life. But now I realized it had been more than that. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't just a few late nights. This was something much deeper, something I had missed completely. I don't know what to do, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Call her, she said softly. She'll answer you. She will. She just needs to know that you're not giving up on her. But I wasn't sure I could keep waiting. I wasn't sure I could just sit back and hope everything would work out. This wasn't just about her needing space anymore. This was about me understanding what had been happening in the dark corners of her life, in the places I had never seen. I ended the call and sat down on the couch. The emptiness of the room pressed in on me, and I couldn't help but think about everything I had missed. Had I really been this blind? Or had I just been avoiding the truth? I picked up my phone again and stared at the screen. This time, there were no more questions. Only one. Where the hell was she? The silence of the apartment felt suffocating. The walls, once so familiar, now seemed to be closing in around me. I had spent hours staring at the same four walls, pacing back and forth, my mind spinning with 1,000 different thoughts. I thought about calling the police, but something in me resisted. I wasn't ready to give up on Sarah yet, not like that. Something told me I had to keep looking for her. I wasn't going to let her just disappear without a trace, without understanding why. The note she had left me, "I can't keep doing this," kept running through my mind. It felt like a cryptic message, as if there was more beneath the surface, something she wasn't ready to say. But what could it all mean? What had she been hiding from me all this time? Every time I thought I had figured it out, another question arose, and I found myself deeper in the rabbit hole. I decided to take a different approach. I had tried calling everyone I could think of, her family, her colleagues, and even a few friends I'd met through her. But no one had seen or heard from her. Everyone kept telling me the same thing. She seemed fine, Eric. She was just busy with work, stressed out. She didn't say anything was wrong. But the more I heard those words, the more they felt like empty excuses. They didn't fit with what I was seeing now. She hadn't been fine. There had to be something more. I drove to places I thought she might go when she wanted to clear her head. That quiet park by the river, the little bookstore on Main Street where she used to spend hours. I checked every cafe, every shop, every corner of the city that held even the slightest connection to her. But each place was empty, untouched by her presence. The search was becoming frustrating, and with each passing hour, my anxiety deepened. I was beginning to feel like I was chasing shadows, constantly one step behind, never able to catch up. I thought about her phone, the one she had stopped answering. I could still see her name flashing on the screen when I tried to reach her. That faint hope that maybe, just maybe, she would pick up, that she would say something. Anything, to reassure me that this was just some misunderstanding. But each time I called, it went straight to voicemail. "I'm sorry, the person you are trying to reach is unavailable." The words were like a cruel reminder that I had been left in the dark, completely shut out of her life. Then, something changed. I didn't know why or how, but as I was driving back toward the apartment, a thought struck me like a lightning bolt. I hadn't checked her social media. In all my panic, I had completely forgotten about it. She hadn't been active much lately, not like she used to be. Her Instagram was full of happy moments, vacations, days at the beach, dinners with friends. Her Facebook was mostly quiet these days, and her Twitter had been abandoned for weeks. But maybe, just maybe, there was something there, something I had missed. I parked my car in front of the building and pulled out my phone. My fingers moved automatically as I navigated to her Instagram page. The feed was mostly what I expected. Pictures of us, some selfies, a few photos of her at work or with her friends. But then, something caught my eye. A new post, just hours ago, long after she had sent me that message. It wasn't anything unusual at first glance, just another picture of her, smiling at the camera. But when I looked closer, I saw the caption, "Sometimes you have to walk away, even when it hurts the most." I felt the ground beneath me shift, as if everything I thought I knew was being torn apart. What was she trying to say? Was this her way of telling me it was over? The smile on her face in the photo was too perfect, too composed. It didn't match the sadness I had been feeling for the past few days. It felt staged, fake. And the words, those words haunted me. Sometimes you have to walk away. Had she already made up her mind? Had she decided that I wasn't worth fighting for anymore? The anger, the hurt, the confusion, it all came crashing down on me. How could she do this? How could she just walk away and leave me in the dark without any explanation? I scrolled through the comments, hoping to find something that would give me a clue, some sign of where she was or what she was thinking. But nothing. Just the usual comments from friends, telling her she looked beautiful or asking where she was. One comment stood out, though. It was from a man I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you again, Sarah. We'll talk soon." That was all it took. The world around me went silent as I stared at the screen. "We'll talk soon." The words echoed in my mind. My stomach turned as the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. There was someone else. She wasn't just needing space. She wasn't just stressed. She had someone else. I immediately clicked on the user's profile, my heart racing. It was a private account, but there were enough details for me to know he was a man she had known for a while. A man I had never heard of. His posts were full of travel photos, dinners with friends, and, of course, the occasional picture with Sarah. He had commented on her posts before, but I had never paid attention to it. It was clear now, though, that there was more to their relationship than I had ever known. I could feel my hands shaking as I put the phone down. The revelation hit me harder than anything before it. All these months, I had been living a lie. She had been slipping away from me, and I hadn't even seen it. I had been blind, trusting her when I shouldn't have, thinking everything was fine when it wasn't. I didn't know what to do next. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to drive to his place and confront him. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't help. It wouldn't bring her back, and it wouldn't fix anything. All I could do was wait, to see if she would come back, to see if she would explain herself. But even as I thought that, I knew she was already gone. And in a way, I was too. The truth had come too late. And now, all I had left was the wreckage of a relationship I thought I understood, a woman I thought I knew, and a world that had suddenly become so much darker. The more I stared at that post, the more I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. My hands were clammy, my heart pounding against my ribs as the truth seeped in, slowly and painfully. Sarah had been seeing someone else. Not just any someone, either. This man was familiar. He was in her life in ways I never noticed, in ways that were there all along, hidden in plain sight. The comments on his photos, the constant interaction between them, the small signs that I had dismissed over time. It all made sense now, but I couldn't bring myself to accept it. How had I missed this? How could I have been so blind? I scrolled through the stranger's profile again, looking for anything that could give me answers. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. A confession? A photo of them together? Some sort of evidence that would shatter everything I thought I knew? But there was nothing like that. The profile was vague, innocent on the surface. Just more travel photos, more pictures of him living his life. But the more I looked at the comments under Sarah's posts, the clearer it became. There was history there, a connection I hadn't been aware of or had refused to see. How long had this been going on? I had to know more. I had to find him. But how? How could I confront a stranger who had quietly slipped into our lives without warning? The thought terrified me. I wasn't a confrontational person by nature, but there was something in me, something dark and bitter, that knew I couldn't let this go. I had to understand what had happened. I had to look him in the eye and demand answers. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the screen, lost in a haze of disbelief. The idea of confronting Sarah seemed pointless now. She had already made her choice. But this man, he was still a mystery. Who was he to her? Why had she chosen him over me? I didn't know what time it was when I finally pushed myself to get up. The apartment felt even emptier than it had before, the silence settling like dust in the corners. The weight of everything hung heavy on me. The anger, the betrayal, and the overwhelming need for closure. I needed to find him. I drove around for hours, my mind running wild with scenarios. I had no idea where to start. I didn't know if I was just being foolish, if I was chasing after something that didn't matter anymore. But it didn't matter. I couldn't stop. I kept thinking about the comment, "We'll talk soon," as if it were a promise, as if they already had plans. It burned me, that simple sentence. Was she planning to leave me? Had she already made the decision? I pulled into a parking lot near a bar I knew she had once mentioned, a place she had gone to with friends a few times. My stomach turned as I parked the car and glanced around. There was no real reason to think he'd be here, but I couldn't help myself. The bar was dimly lit, the neon sign flickering above the entrance. I took a deep breath, my hands still shaking as I grabbed my phone. I checked the man's profile again, looking at the last few photos he'd posted. There was nothing unusual, nothing that pointed me in any direction, but the gnawing feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. I stepped out of the car and made my way to the entrance, my feet feeling heavier with each step. As I walked into the bar, the faint buzz of conversation and the clinking of glasses surrounded me. The place was half empty, a few people hunched over their drinks, lost in their own worlds. It was quiet enough that I felt like I could slip in unnoticed. I walked up to the bar and took a seat. I ordered a drink, anything to calm the nerves that were starting to take over. The bartender didn't seem to pay much attention to me, busy with his own tasks. I sat there, sipping my drink slowly, scanning the room. My mind raced. Was I really about to do this? Was I seriously looking for someone I didn't even know? Someone who had been an invisible part of Sarah's life? After what felt like an eternity, I spotted a man in the corner of the room, sitting alone with a drink in hand. He was tall, his dark hair disheveled, wearing a jacket that looked like it had seen better days. He wasn't the type of person I would have expected Sarah to get involved with. He looked rough around the edges, like someone who was always on the move, never staying in one place for too long. I knew immediately it was him. My heart slammed in my chest as I stood up. I felt the blood rush to my head, my hands suddenly cold. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this. The confrontation felt surreal, but it was happening. There was no turning back. I walked over to him, my breath shallow. He didn't notice me at first, his eyes focused on the drink in his hand. But when I reached the table, I stopped, not sure how to start. "Are you, Mark?" I said, my voice hoarse. He looked up, his expression flickering with recognition. For a moment, I thought he might stand up, or at least say something. But he didn't. He just stared at me with cold eyes, like he already knew who I was, like he had been expecting me. "Yeah, I'm Mark. What's it to you?" he asked, his tone casual, like this was just another regular day for him. I swallowed, my throat dry. The anger I had been holding in finally started to spill out. "I'm Sarah's husband," I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. "And I think it's time we had a conversation." His eyes narrowed, but he didn't look surprised. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Yeah, I figured that was coming," he said, his voice low. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I wasn't going to let him brush me off like it was nothing. "What is going on?" I demanded. "How long has this been happening? Why didn't she tell me? Why didn't I know?" Mark just stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he finally spoke. "She didn't tell you because she didn't want to hurt you. She was already gone, man. She just didn't know how to tell you. But it was over long before you figured it out." My heart dropped as his words hit me like a slap. I thought I was prepared for this moment, but nothing could have prepared me for hearing the truth straight from his mouth. Sarah was gone, and I had been the last one to realize it. His words hung in the air like a dagger, cold and sharp. "She was already gone, man." The sentence echoed through my mind, over and over, as if my brain couldn't comprehend it, couldn't process the reality of what he was telling me. I had always thought Sarah and I were solid, that we were a team. Sure, things hadn't been perfect lately, but we were just in a rough patch, right? Every couple goes through tough times. But hearing Mark say those words, hearing him dismiss the entire time we'd spent together as if it was nothing, felt like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just about her leaving me anymore. It was about how little I knew her in the end. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but I could feel my hands trembling. I wasn't sure if it was anger or fear, but my pulse was racing, and I knew I couldn't just let him speak to me like this. I had to know more. I needed to understand. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "You think you can just waltz in here and tell me that? Tell me she was already gone? You have no idea what we had. You think you can just take her like that?" My voice cracked, but I didn't care. The words were spilling out before I could stop them, fueled by the raw, unfiltered emotions I had buried for so long. Mark didn't flinch. He didn't even seem surprised by my outburst. He just took another sip of his drink, eyes narrowing as he set the glass down slowly. "You don't get it, do you? She's not the person you think she is, Eric. You never saw it. She was never happy. You were too busy playing the good husband to notice. The accusation hit me harder than I expected. I had spent the last few days beating myself up, wondering what had gone wrong, why I hadn't seen the signs. But hearing him confirm my deepest fears was like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the abyss, and realizing there was nothing left to hold on to. It wasn't just about her leaving me. It was about the betrayal that had been building all along. She had been unhappy. She had been hiding it from me. And now, it was too late. I wanted to lash out, to scream at him, but I didn't. I couldn't. My words felt like they were stuck in my throat, suffocating me. How long? I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. How long have you been with her? Mark shrugged, his expression almost indifferent, like this was some kind of game to him. A while. Long enough to know she wasn't going to find what she needed with you. He leaned in, his eyes glinting. You're a nice guy, Eric. But that's not enough. The weight of his words crushed me. They felt like a death sentence. He wasn't just telling me that Sarah had found someone else. He was telling me that I wasn't enough. That everything I had given, every ounce of effort, every moment I thought I was doing the right thing, it wasn't enough for her. It never had been. I couldn't breathe. The room felt like it was closing in, the air thick and heavy with a tension I couldn't escape. She never told me. I said, the words barely escaping my lips. She never said a word. She left me in the dark the whole time. Mark's eyes softened for a moment, but only for a split second. She didn't know how to tell you. She wanted out for a long time, but she didn't know how to walk away. She's not like you, Eric. She's not built to keep things together just because it's what's expected. He looked down at the table, tapping his fingers rhythmically. I'm not saying I'm the answer. I'm just saying she needed something more. Something you couldn't give her. The words hit me like a tidal wave, drowning me in everything I had missed, everything I hadn't seen. All those little moments, the late nights, the silence between us, the distance that had started to grow, hadn't been just stress, or work, or a phase. They had been the cracks in a foundation that I hadn't bothered to fix. And now, everything was falling apart. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if there was anything left to say. The anger that had been building inside me started to fade, replaced by a deep, suffocating sadness. This wasn't about her leaving me for him anymore. It was about everything we'd built together, everything I thought we had, coming apart at the seams, unraveling in front of me. Mark took another drink, his expression unreadable. You'll get over it. You're a strong guy. You'll find someone else. But Sarah? She'll always be like this. Always running, always needing something new. You can't change that. The words stung, but they were true. She had run. She had found someone else. And now, she was gone. I stood up, my legs shaky as I forced myself to move. I couldn't stay here any longer. I couldn't sit across from him, listening to him talk about her like she was just some passing fancy, some fleeting moment in his life. She had meant everything to me. And now, she was gone. There was no fixing it, no going back. I'm done with this, I muttered, my voice low, as I turned and walked toward the door. My hand gripped the handle, but before I left, I glanced back at him. Mark was still sitting there, as if nothing had happened, as if this was all just some casual conversation about a woman who didn't belong to anyone, who had never really belonged to me. But I didn't want to hear any more. I didn't need to. I was done. Done with the lies, done with the secrets, done with pretending that this was just a bump in the road. The road was over, and there was no going back. As I stepped out into the night, the cool air hit me like a shock, but I didn't feel anything. My mind was blank, my heart heavy. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just tired. Tired of fighting for something that was already gone. I drove home in silence, the weight of everything pressing down on me. What was I supposed to do now? Where did I go from here? The answers felt just as elusive as Sarah had been. I wasn't sure I'd ever find them. But one thing was for sure, my life had changed forever, and there was no going back. The silence in the car was deafening as I drove home, the steady hum of the engine doing little to calm my racing thoughts. Mark's words kept echoing in my mind, relentless and unforgiving. She was already gone. They seemed to pierce through me, over and over, each repetition carving a deeper wound. The whole time I had been holding on to a version of Sarah, a version of our relationship that didn't exist anymore. I thought we had something real, something strong, But now it felt like everything was built on lies and half-truths. I wasn't just mourning her departure. I was mourning the life I thought I had. I could still feel the weight of her absence in every inch of the apartment, the echoes of her laughter now replaced by silence. I had been living in a dream that had turned into a nightmare, and now I was wide awake, trapped in the truth of it all. Every corner of the apartment, every place we had shared together, now felt like a reminder of what I had lost. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she was gone, or the fact that she had been slipping away long before I had noticed. I parked the car in front of the building, the flickering lights of the street lamp casting long shadows across the pavement. The air was cold, but it felt oddly suffocating as I stepped out of the car. The weight of everything that had happened was pressing down on me, a crushing feeling in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I didn't know how to make sense of it all. I walked slowly toward the entrance, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the empty night. As I reached the door, my hand hesitated on the handle. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go inside. What was left for me there? The place didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a prison, a place that held memories I wasn't sure I could bear. But I went in anyway. The apartment was just as I had left it, eerily still. I walked through the living room, my eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. Everything was in its place, yet nothing felt the same. It was like I was a stranger in my own life. I walked to the bedroom, my feet moving on autopilot, and when I pushed open the door, it was as if I was stepping into a different reality. The bed was untouched, the sheets still neat, the room as cold and empty as the rest of the apartment. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do now? I had spent years with Sarah, years building a life together, and now it felt like everything had unraveled in the span of a few days. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to break something, anything to release the tension that had been building up inside me. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there in the silence, my thoughts swirling like a storm I couldn't escape. I knew what I had to do. I had to let go. Let go of her. Let go of the life I thought I had. But how could I do that? How could I just erase everything we had built together? My mind kept returning to the same question. Why? Why had she done this to me? Why had she chosen him over me? I had no answers, only questions. And with each passing minute, the anger inside me grew, twisted into something darker. I got up and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. The lights from the streets below twinkled like stars, distant and cold. It was a beautiful view, but it felt empty. Everything felt empty. I didn't know how to fill the void that had been left in me. I didn't know how to make sense of the mess that had been my life. I was done searching for answers. I was done chasing after someone who had already left me behind. But even as I thought that, a small voice inside me whispered that I wasn't ready to let go yet. I grabbed my phone and unlocked it, staring at the screen. I had been avoiding her messages all day, but now I couldn't stop myself. I opened the text thread, reading through the words she had sent me earlier. I'm sorry for everything. I'll explain when you're ready to listen, but I need some space. I ran my finger across the screen, rereading those words, trying to make sense of them. She needed space. She needed time. But she had already made her decision, hadn't she? There was no coming back from this. No amount of explanations or apologies could fix what had been broken. And yet, I couldn't stop myself from wanting more. I wanted the answers. I wanted to know why she had done this to us, to me. The truth hit me again, this time harder. Sarah had already moved on, and I was the one left holding the pieces of a shattered life. She had left me without a second thought, and now, I was the one left picking up the pieces. I thought about reaching out to her, sending one last message. But what would I say? What was left to say? I had already given her everything I had, and she had walked away without looking back. I threw my phone on the bed, pacing the room. My frustration mounted with every step. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of someone who had already let me go. The apartment felt like a cage, the walls pressing in closer with every passing second. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. And all I wanted to do was escape. Escape from this reality, escape from the hurt, the betrayal, the endless questioning of what had gone wrong. But I couldn't escape. I couldn't run away from the truth. I was alone, completely alone, and I didn't know how to fix it. The realization hit me like a wave, and for a brief moment, I felt everything, every ounce of the pain, the anger, the confusion, all of it, crashing over me. I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, my hands gripping my head. I had lost her. I had lost everything. And I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. There was no going back. No second chances. She was gone, and all that was left was the wreckage of a life that had once seemed so perfect. The floor was cold against my back as I sat there, my mind lost in the weight of everything that had happened. I had spent days consumed by the pain of betrayal, the emptiness of a life I thought was solid. I felt lost, like I was floating in the aftermath of something huge, something that had broken me in ways I never imagined. The silence around me had been deafening, but the storm inside me was louder. But somewhere between the crushing weight of despair and the need for answers, something inside me shifted. I had spent so much time holding on to what was gone, clinging to the idea of Sarah, to the idea of the life we'd built together. I had forgotten what it felt like to stand up for myself, to take control of my own happiness. It wasn't her fault. It wasn't even his. It was mine. I had allowed myself to lose sight of who I was in the pursuit of something that no longer existed. For the first time in days, I stood up. Slowly, cautiously, but with a sense of purpose. I walked through the apartment, the place that had once felt like home, and instead of seeing it as a reminder of everything I had lost, I began to see it for what it was, a place that had held me through both the good times and the bad, a space that I had filled with my own memories, my own dreams. I reached the kitchen, and for the first time in days, I made myself a cup of coffee. It wasn't for anyone else. It wasn't for Sarah. It was for me. I needed this moment to remind myself that I was still here, still breathing, still capable of moving forward. I sat at the counter, the warm mug in my hands, and as I sipped the coffee, I let my thoughts settle. Sarah had chosen her path, and I had to choose mine. I had spent too long waiting for something that wasn't going to come back. The past was gone. I couldn't change it. I couldn't rewind time. But I could choose to move forward. I picked up my phone again. This time, I wasn't checking for her messages. I wasn't chasing answers that didn't matter anymore. Instead, I sent a message to an old friend. Someone I hadn't talked to in years. Someone who had once been an important part of my life, but who I had drifted away from, just like I had drifted from myself. Hey, it's been a while. How about we grab a drink sometime soon? I could really use some company. I wasn't looking for a rebound. I wasn't looking to replace what I had lost. But I needed to remind myself that life wasn't just about loss. It was also about finding new things, about building new connections, and rediscovering parts of myself I had neglected. The days that followed weren't easy. There were moments when I caught myself thinking of Sarah, of wondering what she was doing, where she was, or if she was even thinking of me. But those moments were becoming fewer and fewer. The weight of her absence began to lighten as I focused on rebuilding my own life. I started going to the gym again, something I hadn't done in months. I reconnected with old hobbies I had let slip away, and slowly, the pain started to fade, replaced by a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. I had been drowning in the idea of what I had lost, but in the process, I was learning to swim again. I was learning to live for myself. A month later, I found myself standing at the edge of the city, looking out at the skyline. It wasn't the view that mattered. It was the feeling that had washed over me. I was free, not free from the past, but free from the chains I had put on myself, the expectations, the weight of other people's decisions. I was finally free to create my own future. I knew that life would never be the same. The person I had been before Sarah, before all the pain, wasn't who I was now. But that didn't scare me anymore. In fact, I felt stronger. I felt ready to embrace the unknown, to trust in myself again. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that happiness didn't come from another person, no matter how much I thought it did. It came from within, from the strength to move on, the courage to let go, and the ability to start again. And that was the beginning of something new, something that was entirely mine.